Welcome to Conducting and Writing the Literature Review. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about the ways you can expand your annotated bibliography into the proper literature review that's required for your final action research project. So just as a reminder, why we do a review of the research literature. So before you've conducted your research, you review the literature to situate your question in a larger framework and to place it in the context of existing knowledge. Also, we understand that in order to learn new things, we have to be very familiar with what's come before. So O'Leary says the production of new knowledge is fundamentally dependent on past knowledge. It's virtually impossible for researchers to add to a body of literature if they are not conversant with it. And then finally, Hubbard and Power talk about the literature review as a place to map out the scholarly community of which you see yourself as a member. And I always like to think about it as who I would invite to my dinner party. I have 8 spots around the table. Who do I want to be there to discuss my work and my research? Who can add to that conversation? So Koshy, and this should seem familiar to you because this was from the Annotated Bibliography presentation, Koshy has a very pragmatic approach to discussing the literature review and says that it will help you identify what's been done before and what are the gaps in the research. It will help provide a background for your inquiry and help you articulate a rationale for your study, support you in review and refining your research topic, and locate your project within current debates and viewpoints. And so these were the guiding principles around conducting the research for your annotated bibliography. So now it's your job to build upon what you've already done. Just as again, as a reminder, you created an annotated bibliography that was an organized list of citations, books, articles, and documents. Each citation should have been followed by a brief descriptive paragraph, and that's the annotation. So it listed the citation and your description. Remember, please, that your annotation should use APA format. And remember, if you don't have the APA 6th edition, you can always find that information on the OWL site out of Purdue, and it gives you all the information you need on how to properly use the APA citation format. You summarize the research and describe the possible application in your research project. But now we're going to take those 8 citations that you created and reorganize them to form a narrative, which will then be the literature review. So now that you've probably done some data collection, perhaps all of your data collection, we're going to ask you to return to the literature for clarification and expansion. And the literature can help you now at this point analyze your findings and in some cases create new categories of information. So it can be useful to return to the literature after you've done some of the data collection. Now, in supporting your creation of an annotated bibliography, it was suggested that you survey literature from 3 different resources. Policy-related literature, this was especially important in terms of situating your dual language programs, the theoretical literature, and then existing research that consisted of empirical studies that focused on similar topics or methodologies. There was no requirement for research methods literature in this for this project because we have such a short time frame. But if you are going to continue on and do a thesis or even a doctoral dissertation, you would need to survey the research methods literature as well. Now you're going to organize all of your findings into categories. So the goal is now to actually do an analysis of the literature to find those categories and group citations together based on big ideas. So sometimes you might group the literature by what they found. They found that X was the best strategy for supporting classroom discussions or motivating students. Or it might be a method, a specific strategy. Or it might be that they all used a specific tool. Some of you decided to use previously validated observation tools, for example. Or it might be a context. They all took place in bilingual elementary school classrooms or kindergarten classrooms or any other unifying idea. I wanted to make sure that you understand they don't have to be organized now by these are the theoretical articles, these are the empirical articles, these are the policy articles. And then one thing that I do, and this is not required, but just a helpful tip, is that while you're doing the analysis, you might color code. So these, I might circle the words or go back and highlight in my computer using a Word document, or even in some PDFs you can do that, so that it helps me organize and see the themes. That way you can create kind of a systematic review of the literature. So for your action research project, you're no longer going to be turning in that annotated bibliography, the list of citations followed by annotations. You're going to be creating a literature review that is a narrative. It's going to be telling the story of what has come before you in terms of the research experiences. So you should create a review that's read as a narrative and organized into the themes. I recommend using subtitled sections, so it might be like kindergarten classrooms or 90-10 dual language programs, something like that. There must be a thread to connect those ideas, and so creating a subtitled section helps you name what all of the articles in that section represent. I encourage you to use notable quotes so you can mine the research and pull out those big ideas. Remember to use the citation including the page number if you use direct quotes. But also I encourage you to paraphrase and cite useful ideas that can become clusters in these paragraphs. We expect this paper to be about 4 pages long, and that would be a fully developed review of the literature, and you are also required to use the 8 citations at least that were from your annotated bibliography. If you have 10 citations, that's fine, or more, but we want at least 8 citations included in the literature review. Don't forget, your paper must conform to the APA 6th edition, and again, if you don't have that volume, you can always find out on OWL, O-W-L, out of Purdue. Just Google that site. So there's nothing to turn in for the discussion board in this module for the literature review. This will be turned in your final action research paper. So if there are any questions, don't hesitate to email me, and I look forward to reading the way that you've developed and built upon the annotated bibliographies that you already submitted.